The Being an Engineer podcast is a repository for industry knowledge and a tool through which engineers learn about and connect with relevant companies, technologies, people, resources, and opportunities. Enjoy the show.
Not your typical hero origin story, but my parents went to see a psychic, and the psychic told them that their oldest daughter, me, would grow up to become an engineer.
Hello and welcome to the Being an Engineer podcast. Our guest today is Allison Peck, who holds both a bachelor's and master's degree in biomedical engineering from Cal Poly. Allison currently works as a senior program manager at a startup where their team is revolutionizing cell therapy manufacturing. She also has a passion for sharing career advice relevant to U.S. tech jobs. Allison, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be talking with you today.
Me as well. Okay, so you have this really active social media platform where you share career advice, and I definitely want to dive into that later on in the show. I think I'm going to save that for the second half, and during the first half, I'd like to talk about Allison Peck as an engineer. So with that, what made you decide to become an engineer?
Well, it all started when I was about 5 years old. Not your typical hero origin story, but my parents went to see a psychic, and the psychic told them that their oldest daughter, me, would grow up to become an engineer and work in a male-dominated field. And so my parents came home with that psychic information and told me, and I grew up knowing that that was my path in life. And I often wonder whether that is truly why I became an engineer, or if the psychic was right. I really had a knack for it.
That is a wild story, and I have never received that answer before to that particular question, right? You hear a lot of talk about Legos and taking apart cars and fixing cars and things like that, but I have never heard a psychic told my parents that I was going to be an engineer. I've got to say that's probably the most interesting answer that I've received to date for that particular question. So kudos to you. I guess kudos to your parents really for that, right?
Yeah.
And the psychic. So you said that you grew up knowing that you were going to be an engineer. Did you really feel that way inside? I mean, was it like this visceral connection that you had to engineering your whole life?
Actually, yes. My dad was a construction worker, and my mom was an artist and a teacher. And the marriage of the two growing up, I would work in my garage with my dad with tools, hammering two pieces of wood together. And then my mom would give me paintbrushes and I could paint on them afterwards. And so the design element of seeing something in your mind, putting it together, seeing it come to life, and then making it your own. I really grew up with that framework. And so, yeah, I do think so.
Yeah, that's excellent. How do you think having an artist for a mother influenced you as an engineer?
Well, I think a lot about left brain, right brain. And I think this is how it's structured, is that left brain is very logical, critical thinking. Right brain is more creative, emotional. And I actually think that it was a great thing growing up having an artist mother, because she really nurtured that right brain side of me. And I have worked with a lot of engineers that are purely left brain, and they're very smart, but sometimes they're tough to work with. And the right brain side of people is more soft and charismatic and personable. So I think it made me pretty well-rounded.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you work for a startup in San Francisco right now. What can you tell us about startup life and beyond that? The startup for which you work is in San Francisco, but you actually work remotely quite a bit of the time, and more remotely than maybe a lot of us are used to. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So first, to answer your question about startup life, I worked for a startup in 2012, 2013, Outset Medical in San Jose. That was right out of college, and it was actually pretty rough. It was a wonderful company to work for, but I didn't feel like I had the tools in my tool belt and the skills and the experience to really make an impact immediately at that company. So it was really me being a sponge and learning a lot, absorbing information from the more senior engineers. This time around, I've worked for a couple bigger companies. And so this time around at a new startup, I feel like I can really hit the ground running, make an impact, and I know what is needed where and when. So I really appreciate that trajectory of my life. And I didn't back then. In 2013, it was really hard for me to be at the beginning. I like to be the best at what I do. I'm a very type A personality. So now I feel like I'm starting to be very good at what I do. And so I'm having a good time. And then working remote, I really like working remote. It is tough sometimes because I think relationship cultivation and relationship management is really important for work. And those face-to-face, water cooler hallway conversations are important. But in the wake of this, great resignation, whatever you want to call it, this shift in corporate paradigm, I'm seeing that instead of people making their life fit around work, people are making work fit around their lives, almost like a hobby. So it's interesting. It's an interesting time.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a question and I forgot it. It was a really good question too. Let's see. You were talking about. Oh, I know what it was. Okay, let's say that I am. I'm just getting started as an engineer working at a startup, and I don't have the benefit that Allison has of having done this in the past and learning from my mistakes or from my triumphs. Even, what might you say to an individual who's just started to work at a startup that you didn't know back then that you know now and you wish you had known back then?
So you're asking me what advice I would give?
That's right.
So I think that the ability to think critically is absolutely the most important skill an engineer can have. And
is that specific to being at a startup, or is that just in general?
I think it's in general. If you're looking for an answer that's specific to being at a startup, so oftentimes a bigger company is a very safe space to ask what somebody might consider a stupid question. But at a startup, it's a little more fast-paced and dynamic, and some people might feel like there's no time to ask stupid questions. And so the piece about thinking critically, I would, before you ask a question, if you're just your first time, you're working at a startup, if you have a question and you think it's a dumb question, try to rearrange the question in your mind and think critically about how you could phrase it in a smart or intelligent way. And you will accelerate your career by reframing your mind to think critically and asking what you might think is a stupid question in an intelligent way.
That's a great way to say it. I had a college professor who used to say, you always get the kids in college who raise their hands and preface their question by saying, "This is a dumb question, but," which always drove me crazy. Why are you asking if it's a dumb question? And my professor would, he didn't suffer fools. And so anytime someone said that, which didn't happen very often, right? It happened once, and then that was kind of it for the semester. He would say, "Oh, no. There are no dumb questions, only dumb people." And it was hilarious.
Oftentimes I find that if somebody says I have a dumb question and then they ask their question, I know there's somebody else in the room that is also wondering that. And kudos to the brave person that asked it, because now everybody gets to hear the answer and benefit from it.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. All right. You are a program manager right now. What is the day-to-day like of an engineering program manager?
Okay, so imagine you have a bunch of cats, and you might know where I'm going with this, but imagine that these cats need to achieve a goal by a certain date. And imagine that the cats all speak different languages and they've all come from different homes. Yes, and some of them are 10-year-old cats.
Different cultures.
Yes, different cultures, different types of cats. Some of them are 1-year-old cats. So what I do is I help the cats talk with each other. I help the cats understand what the goal is. And if anybody has questions about the timeline, I help quantify the why, or try to help people understand why we need to get, not the people, the cats. I help the cats understand why we need to get here by this date and what happens if we don't. And just helping people that speak different languages, come from different backgrounds, maybe have experience in different areas or industries, come together, speak the same language, and work toward the same goal together. So program managers are essentially the glue that holds different departments together and brings everybody along on the same timeline of the product or the program.
That's a wonderful analogy, right? Everyone's familiar with the analogy herding cats, so that works perfectly. I love that. All right, we're going to travel back in time just a little bit to one of your previous roles, and you worked for a company called Intuitive Surgical, where the Da Vinci robot is manufactured. In particular, you worked on the alpha, beta, and gamma builds of the SP Da Vinci surgical system. For those of you who don't know what that is, I highly encourage you to go out and just go to YouTube and type in SP Da Vinci surgical system. It's an amazing surgical tool, robotic surgical tool. So, Allison, what can you tell us about Da Vinci in general, and also specifically about the SP platform?
Yeah, so I loved my 5 years working for Intuitive. It was such a good experience, and I really grew into myself as an engineer and program manager. That's when I did my transition. So the Da Vinci surgical platform is a wonderful tool, as you said, because it allows and enables surgeons to perform minimally invasive surgery, transorally, transabdominally, transanally. And instead of leaving a big scar, you leave, for the multi-port system, you leave a couple small incision scars. For the single port or SP system, there's only one site for surgery. There's one hole. And if you can imagine 4 or 5 snaking wrist instruments going inside that hole and all, triangulating to cut out a tumor or sew somebody up. It's just amazing. The videos are incredible. Like you said, YouTube, you can see somebody doing surgery on a grape. That's a really popular one. So the Da Vinci platform is incredible. And yeah, it was really wonderful working there. I started out there as a manufacturing engineer. I learned all about what it means to bring up an assembly line, train technicians, create manufacturing process instructions, what design for assembly really means. I learned about part inventory and part shortages and line down situations. And it was just incredible. And at one point in time, I realized, engineering might not be for me. I really didn't feel like I was leveraging my friendly, outgoing personality, working at my desk, working in SolidWorks, working on the manufacturing line in a lab coat all day. And so I talked to my manager at the time and I said, you know what? I think that I'm not supposed to be an engineer. And my mom cried, and
That must have been a scary conversation.
it was very scary. So my manager at the time, he's great. He'll probably listen to this. Hi, Steve. He said, you know what? I think you'd be great as a program manager. You're great at tracking status of projects. You're great with time management. And you're really good talking to people and gleaning information from high level conversations. I think you'd make a great program manager. I actually know of an open position at this company. Do you want me to recommend you for it? And that is how I got into program management.
Interesting. Very cool. Well, how lucky you were to have a manager who recognized those skills in you.
Yep.
While you were at Intuitive, so you mentioned a couple of things that you did there, doing CAD, working, helping bring up a manufacturing line, supply chain support, things like that. Can you think of one of the bigger challenges that you and your team faced then, and how you overcame that challenge?
A challenge that my team faced. It was challenging sometimes. So do you want something technical or more general?
Up to you.
Okay, I have an idea of what I want to talk about. So, company growth is really interesting. Our company was growing a lot in my time there, and I think company culture is very important. It's a good indicator of future revenue and company health in general. So it was interesting to see the changes and this struggle that came along with the growth of a team and the growth of a department, changes in leadership, people coming and going, and onboarding new people and sharing information and seeing things from a new person's perspective, and sort of challenging the status quo, like, hey, this person is new and we've been doing something the same way for 5 years, but they bring up a really good point. Maybe we could do it differently. Are we open to that? So staying open-minded during company growth, I'd say, was a huge challenge for a lot of people, especially me.
Staying open-minded during company growth. So something had been done the same way for years, and people are kind of stuck in that mindset. I see. That makes a lot of sense. We're going through. I'd say something similar here. We've had a lot of growth lately. We've been hiring a lot of people, and it's interesting to see how the culture, the dynamic, it can change really quickly if you're not on top of that, managing the
Yep.
culture change, and something we're still trying to figure out the best way to approach here at Pipeline.
Yep. It's
Um,
always a struggle. There's no equation for it, and it's different at every company. And it's hard to get in front of, really, because you can't really force culture. You can, but it's not done that way. So yeah, it's
that's
it's tough
counter.
for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Well, this is probably a good place to take a very short break and share with the listeners that teampipeline.us is where you can learn more about how we help medical device and other product engineering or manufacturing teams develop turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines to characterize, inspect, assemble, manufacture, and perform verification testing on your devices. We're speaking with Allison Peck today. So let's transition from Allison the engineer to Allison the influencer. Can I call you an influencer? Is that an appropriate term to use?
It's a little weird, but sure, you can call me that.
Okay. How did you get into giving career advice?
So I attribute it to my husband's his vision for my potential that I couldn't see at the time. So my husband is the most wonderful man, and I really appreciate what he sees in me. And he is a expert at marketing and branding and personal branding. And he said, "Hey, I think it'd be really cool if you started being proactive about your own personal brand." And I said, "What is that?" And he explained it to me. It's your reputation. It's what people say about you when you leave the room. It's how people feel about you after you leave the room. And he said, "I think it'd be really cool if you started posting on LinkedIn." And I said, "Really? But that's so scary. But I'll do it." And I trusted him, and I started writing some posts on LinkedIn. And he said, "Yeah, your energy is so cool in videos. You should do some videos." And I went, "Okay." So I started making videos on LinkedIn, and different social media platforms are interesting. I started getting lots of um, requests from recruiters. Hey, are you interested in this open role? So I noticed that it was having an effect immediately, and I thought, hey, this is great.
Hmm.
It started opening a lot of doors for me, but I didn't feel like I was really reaching the audience that I wanted. I was reaching recruiters. I want to help engineers, and I want to help program managers and anything in between. I want to help them learn from the mistakes that I made, so that me working hard, you guys can work smart from learning from the mistakes that I made in my career. So posting every single day for 1 year on LinkedIn got me 2,000 new
Wow.
followers.
Every
And then
day. That's a big
every
commitment.
day is a big commitment. It took a lot of bravery too. I was embarrassed a lot of the time. Major imposter syndrome. But my husband was my cheerleader, and he kept me going. So then I thought, LinkedIn, that's a little slow. Let me try TikTok, this new app called TikTok. I got in 6 months 400,000 followers. I had a couple viral
Wow.
videos, and it feels so good to be able to reach a lot more people. So I've let LinkedIn go a little bit. It wasn't really the greatest platform
Sure.
for what I wanted to do.
What were one or two of the most viral, or what was the content in one or two of the most viral TikTok videos?
Okay, so I actually did go viral once on LinkedIn, so that was a cool one. So one time I wrote about this. One time I was in an interview. I was interviewing for a job as an engineer, and at the end of the interview process, they ask you, "Okay, can you give us 3 references, and we'll check references?" I said, "Sure. Here are 3 people. They can speak to my character and my professional abilities." And the guy at the time said, "Great, I'll call your references. Here are 3 of my references, so you can talk to women specifically, female engineers who have worked for me, and you can ask them anything you want. They know that to expect your call." And I said, "Whoa, that has never happened to me before. Why isn't this a
Yeah.
thing?" So I posted
Yeah.
about that on LinkedIn, and that got 5 million views. Um,
Whoa.
lots of weirdos in my DMs. 5 million is a lot. It's a big reach. Another viral video I had is my most viral video got 15 million views on TikTok. And that's where I shared a little piece of advice on having difficult conversations. This was in relation to exit interviews. This video went viral partially because a lot of people had never heard of exit interviews. But what the video was saying is that when you're having a difficult conversation, instead of placing blame on somebody when you're talking about an issue or confrontation, you should use I language. So instead of saying, I'm leaving your company because you have bad managers, instead you can say, I'm leaving your company because I really value leaders and managers who are empathetic and good communicators, and I didn't find that at this company. So that using I language instead of you language, just a communication tool that I learned in therapy a long time ago. So that went viral, and mostly went viral because people were arguing in the comments on whether I was right or wrong. So we love it when people argue in the comments.
Yeah.
It pushes the algorithm.
I think that's great advice. There is something about using the word you that you have to be really careful about, right? Because it can come across as almost combative in the wrong context. And even if you're not aware of it, it's really easy for that to be taken in the wrong way by whoever you're speaking with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. TikTok is one of your probably your most preferred platform. It seems like. Do you use other platforms as well? You mentioned LinkedIn, or are you doing like Facebook or Instagram or anything like that?
I think that Facebook is dying, and so I did not choose to do Facebook. However, I did go on Facebook the other day and saw that same video with the I versus you language went viral on Facebook.
No
That
way.
somebody else posted of me. So I am on Facebook, but not by my own design. So that's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
right.
It was interesting reading those comments. And then let's see, I'm attempting to do Instagram, but I also think Instagram's kind of dying. I see a lot of reposts of TikTok videos on Instagram, so not super excited about Instagram. I am trying YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Ali and Rico, and my husband and I share it together. He talks about marketing. I talk about professional career development. We only have about 450 followers. It's kind of hard to gain traction on YouTube, but I would love to monetize with YouTube someday. So
Yeah,
I'll probably put more effort into that one.
yeah. Do you do any private coaching, or is it basically just whatever the content is online that you share with everyone?
I do some private coaching. So I would like to reach as many people as possible so that I can help and have just as broad an audience as I can. And I put my email address. Actually, I'll back up. The way TikTok works is if you're following me, but I'm not following you, you can't message me. And I'm only following like 60 people, and it's all celebrities. So, of course, they're not going to be talking to me yet.
Yes,
But I
that
did.
qualifier.
Right. But I did put my, I was curious about the career coaching thing. Like, would I like this? Doing one-on-one stuff with people. And so I put my email address in my TikTok bio, and I said, contact me with any career coaching questions. And I got a lot of bites, and I've had lots of one-on-ones with people, and I've heard some crazy horror stories about people's career situations. And it's kind of opened my eyes that, I'm very privileged and lucky with the career path that I've had. A lot of people have struggled. But I did have one longer term client, and she was wonderful to work with. She needed a job in order to maintain her visa. She was from overseas, and so she had a really aggressive timeline for her job search, and I was not able to help her in the ways that she needed, and she was not able to get a job before her visa expired, and that hurt so bad for both of us.
Ouch. Yeah, that's hard.
I think she learned a lot, but that kind of scarred me, and I didn't feel right charging her money when I wasn't able to help her accomplish her goal. So I kind of backed away from the coaching thing. I got a little too emotionally invested, and so I've kind of stepped back and started to do more of the broad, just pushing out content instead.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about social media just a little bit more because I'm guessing that there are other engineers out there very similar to me who are entirely social media illiterate, right? TikTok, what is that? I mean, honestly, I probably even wouldn't even know what it is if my wife hadn't showed me some videos on it. So why should, or maybe the question is, should engineers be using social media, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever? Is there value for engineers in their career to be on these platforms?
Absolutely, in one specific way. Everybody talks about networking, but screw networking. Here's what I think engineers should be doing on social media. So, you know how you have a resume that says, I can do these things and I have these skills? And then you interview and you try to convince the interviewer, I have this experience and I have these skills. It's so much more powerful when you can show somebody, I have programmed this microcontroller to light up these LEDs, or I have designed this gear train for my bike, and this is a video of me riding my bike. Um, I see videos very rarely, a little more often lately, but I see videos on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, where engineers have designed something and built it and are showcasing it. And I think that is way more powerful than any resume, than any interviewing
Mm,
skills you might have. Show versus tell. Resume, you're telling somebody how good you are at something. Interviewing, you're telling somebody. But a video of you doing something is 100 times more powerful. It's proof that you can do what you say you're going to do. And so I envision a world where, as a hiring manager, I was just promoted at my company, and now I'm hiring for my team, and I interview a lot. I envision a world where I can look through a social media platform, scroll through videos, and find a video of somebody doing something that I need to be done on my team, and I can reach out and say, "Hey, are you looking for a job? You have a video doing exactly what I need you to do. Are you interested?"
that's a great idea. I love that world.
Yeah,
I
me
mean,
too.
speaking as an employer myself, I don't care so much about where you went to school or what your GPA was. Like,
Me
none of that
neither.
stuff really means a whole lot. Show me what you can do.
Yeah.
And Allison, you make a terrific point. A great way to show a person what you can do is to actually show them, right, with a video. That's a terrific idea. I love
Yep,
that.
and if you're not comfortable doing that, because it takes a lot of cojones to do that, um, what you can do, here's a little trick that I like to see in interviews. Usually, Zoom interviews nowadays are just two people showing their video, talking to each other for 30 minutes. But I think it's really cool when somebody shares their screen, and shows me, hey, this is a spreadsheet I made, or like, hey, this is a picture of a thing that I designed, or hey, this is a 2D drawing of a CAD model that I made last week. Um, if you don't want to make videos and put yourself out there like that, because it's scary sometimes, you can do that in an interview and you can show that way also. Instead of just telling somebody you've designed something, you can show it by sharing your screen.
Yeah, yeah. Resumes are out, everyone. Nobody cares
Yeah,
about the resume anymore. Show
and
us something
cover
real.
and cover letters too. Nobody reads a cover letter nowadays.
All right. What are a few of the mistakes that you see engineers making most often that limit their growth or advancement in their careers and companies?
Let's see. Confidence is one. Um,
Confidence. Are you saying like fake it till you make it kind of thing?
yeah, or know your limitations, know what you can do and know what you can't do, and work
Oh, so
within those.
don't be overly confident is more what you're saying.
Be confident, be appropriately confident, and and shine where the light is.
Yeah, that's going to be hard for engineer. What does appropriate mean? Give me a binary, 0 to 10. Where
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me think about this.
there's
So,
there's a quote that I love that's very applicable, I think, to what we're talking about right now. It says,
okay.
"When in doubt, assume you're right. Decisiveness is productive." I love those words. I think
Yeah.
they're truths to live by.
Yeah. Okay, along those lines, some advice I would give and some mistakes that I see often are that people make decisions from their gut or from their emotion. Um, Engineers from their gut mostly, not so much from their emotion. But I would say before you make a decision, anticipate that somebody's going to question it and have data in your back pocket to back it up.
Mm,
That's where I see engineers fall flat sometimes, is they'll say, I recommend this, but they don't have a because
yeah.
um, behind it. So know why you're making a decision and anticipate that somebody's going to question it and be able to stand up for yourself and have confidence because you have data to back it up.
That's great advice. I want to take a little tangent there. I can't remember where I read this. It was some behavioral psychology book or something like that. But they were talking about going with your gut, making decisions based on your gut feeling, and how sometimes that can be a good thing. Other times it can be a bad thing. So how do you know when it's a good idea to use your gut versus when it's a bad idea? And what these researchers found was that if it's an environment that you're very familiar with, something that you've done for years and years and years, you have lots of experience, typically going with your gut is a good idea. But
Yep.
if it's in a new environment where you don't really know what you're doing, going with your gut is generally not a good idea.
I agree with that. And I think years of experience and data collection can inform your gut, and you can exercise and um, strengthen the gut, as you're saying, and so that you can trust it.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that.
What's the best part of your job?
Um, to be honest, working with my manager, he is empowering. He has my back. He trusts me. He doesn't micromanage me in any sense of the word. And I really didn't know what I could do until I worked for him. He has the best management techniques I've seen out of anybody. And um, I think that makes a world of difference.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
favorite part.
for sure. All right, I've just got maybe one or two questions left, and then we can wrap this up. How has failure shaped your life?
Well, failure. I mean, I think that failure and learning are synonymous. They can be, um, if failure can be productive in that way. So failure, first of all, if I had never failed, I would have no content to make on social media. Most of my
Oh,
content is, hey, I have messed this up before. Let me show you what I've learned. So, first of all, I would have nothing interesting to say. um, Second of all, it's added an aspect of humility, and the dance between humility and confidence as an engineer and now as a program manager. It's a fine line. You know, understanding what my limits are, understanding what failure looks like, and how it can be productive, on the road to your awakening or your growth or wherever you're headed. I embrace failure, and I love the phrase "fail early and often." And I think failure is a wonderful thing. It hurts in the moment. I had a failure moment this week, and it was a rough day. I gave somebody some false information on accident, and they caught it, and I promised it wouldn't happen again, but it was a rough day. I beat myself up about it. And then I read a quote, and the quote kind of helped me reframe my mind. And I saw it as a learning opportunity. And I appreciate the life, the life that I'm living this week, that I was able to make a mistake in a safe environment and learn from it. So I embrace failure. It's hard though.
isn't that amazing how your mindset can change? I don't know if so easily is the right way to say it, but I mean, externally in the physical environment around you, nothing changed, right?
Right.
You looked at these letters on a page somewhere and they were meaningful enough that the circuitry in your brain was temporarily rewired in a way that allowed you to, you know, be happy or come to terms with or
Yeah.
move forward anyway. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. The phrase, I think I can remember the quote that helped me reframe my mind, and understand that this failure was a lesson in learning, is I accept myself completely here and now, and um, I acknowledge that everything I feel, think, say, and do is a necessary part of my awakening.
Amen to
So,
that.
yeah.
All right. One more question here, and then we'll wrap up. Can you think of a time when you wanted to give up because whatever you were doing was just too hard, but you didn't give up, and then share why didn't you give up, and kind of like what did you take away from that experience?
Um, You know, I I do not give up easily. And so not often am I finding myself in a position where I'm questioning giving up. I have trained myself to believe that giving up is not an option. Changing directions can be an option if there's good reason and it makes sense. But I don't really, I mean, I guess grad school, I guess. Grad school was pretty hard. I wasn't a good test taker. I had straight C's probably. And in grad school, you have to maintain B averages. And so I almost failed out of grad school because of my grades. And I thought about giving up, I guess, back then. And I mean, it would have been a huge waste of money because I had already taken out the student loan. So I decided not to give up. That's honestly what kept me going, was just the
Wow.
idea of paying off the loans and not having the degree. So I think if you can have a strong why, I don't think that's the strongest why. I mean, making a difference in the world, becoming an engineer, designing things might have been a stronger why. But if you can find a strong why that motivates you through challenging times, doesn't really matter what it is. Find
Yeah.
that and it'll
Yeah.
help anchor you.
Well, it's hard to make a huge difference if you're saddled in debt. So I say
Absolutely.
that's a strong enough why. Yeah. Great. Well, Allison, where can people find you, or how can people get a hold of you?
I would say LinkedIn is the best way. I am sad to admit that I go on LinkedIn probably 20 times a day. I'm talking to a lot of people on there. I'm posting a lot more again just because I miss it, actually. So LinkedIn is a great way. My name is Allison Peck, ALLISON PECK. And also, if you find me on TikTok, my handle is at Allie from Corporate Zero. And my email, if you can find it, is in my bio on TikTok. So you can email me, you can send me a private message on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk with anybody.
Awesome. All right. Well, Allison, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a delight getting to know you and talking a little bit. I really, really appreciate your time.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
I'm Aaron Moncur, founder of Pipeline Design and Engineering. If you liked what you heard today, please share the episode. To learn how your team can leverage our team's expertise developing turnkey equipment, custom fixtures, and automated machines, and with product design, visit us at teampipeline.us. Thanks for listening.